Welcome to Michael Pott's F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. Abu Dhabi 2021. In this vlog, I'd like to take a deep dive into the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, one of the most exhilarating and controversial races that I've ever photographed. I was a bit hesitant about doing this vlog because I know a lot of people have quite strong feelings about the outcome, and it's still quite raw with many fans. I'm here in Abu Dhabi preparing for the final race of the 2022 season. I'm casting my mind back to try and remember what was going on this time last year, thinking back to standing at the final corner as the checkered flag came down and what I was feeling and thinking at the time. I traveled to the Middle East to photograph the final three races of the year. It was the epic battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, coming to a crescendo in the desert. Throughout the course of the season, we had been treated to some great rivalry between the two drivers. Some epic wheel-to-wheel battles, some of those battles ending up in crashes. There was rivalry on the track, there was rivalry off the track between the two teams, a lot of controversy. It was brilliant. The penultimate race of the year was the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix in Jeddah. This is the first time we had gone there, and the race was very, very controversial. With Lewis winning, it left the two protagonists tied, level on score, neck and neck, going into the final race. It was like a made-for-TV moment. The winner takes all, under the lights, in the desert. What could possibly go wrong? Let's start on Thursday. All the drivers were very keen to explore the alterations made to the track. There have been a number of changes made designed to improve the overtaking of the track. This is a photograph of Max Verstappen doing a track walk with his team. He's just walking underneath the bridge of the Yas Marina hotel. Lewis reconnoitred the changes via electric scooter. It's quite unusual to see Lewis exploring the track, and this kind of showed how important this race was to him. Thursdays are the media days, and there's a lot of interviews between the drivers and the press. And I was looking for any sign of nervousness or tension or anything between the two main protagonists. I took this shot of Max in the TV pen, framing him between the television and the reporter. Together with the mask, it makes quite a dramatic image. But to be honest, both drivers came across as being remarkably calm and very relaxed and content within themselves. I did get this quite funny shot of Max talking to his father, Yas. It's a little bit out of context, and the moment I captured made it look like Max is being berated by his father. The track might not have produced classic races in the past, but it is a classic venue to photograph racing cars. The amazing Yas Marina Hotel is a stunning architectural focal point, and it's a unique subject matter for this track. Its futuristic design is a great backdrop for the cars, and there's this point where you can get really close down to the barrier and shoot the cars quite low down, making a very spectacular image. There's a bridge going over the track, and with the gorgeous symmetry of the hotel and the dramatic evening light of the desert, you can get a very, very cool shot of the cars passing underneath. But I think it's from the roof of the hotel that you get the most interesting photographs. Here's a shot of Max, and I've taken it through the cladding. So I'm using that to frame and isolate the car and give it a bit more focus. In this next shot, looking down at the car as it passes underneath the bridge, I've framed that with the side of the cladding of the hotel and the bridge. Again, trying to give focus to the car. I shot this with a very fast shutter speed because I wanted the car and the hotel to be crisp and in focus. The hotel consists of two towers connected by a bridge, and then there's this cladding that goes over both of them to give you the sense of it being a single building. We're able to shoot from both sides of the hotel. Here's a shot I took from 2018, also of Max Verstappen, and I'd like to know which side of the hotel you think produces the best photograph. Apart from the architecture, the organisers have also managed to maximise the spectacle of the event by staging it in the early evening. It goes from dusk to sunset to early evening blues. This changing light is wonderful to work with as a photographer. Here is Lewis coming down the main straight, which is bathed in orange light. There's dark shadows from the grandstands, and they add a little bit of interest to the photograph. In the background, you can see some white marks on the tracks. These are made by the cars as they start the race. There was a great spot between turn 14 and 15 in the old layout, which is probably now 9 and 10 in the new layout, where you could photograph the sun descending as a giant golden orb and a racing car in front. But unfortunately, there's been some new developments there, and that shot's now gone for us. But there is still a shot around turn 3 where you can get something similar. This is a shot of Max taken in qualifying. I've used a slow shutter speed, and that kind of blurs the sun and the palm trees a bit in the background, but it gives you a wonderful sense of the magical light in Abu Dhabi. As the sun sets, you have the lights coming on in the hotel, the sky turns to blues and purples, and you have a lot of gorgeous light to work with. This is a shot of Nikita Mazepin coming into the hotel section. Mazepin actually didn't start this race. He was withdrawn at the last minute due to COVID and missed out on racing in what would have been his final Grand Prix. For every driver not named Max or Lewis, the pressure's kind of off. There's a lot of end-of-term vibes going on, a lot of holiday chat, and some of the drivers get to do some pretty cool promotions. George Russell took the opportunity to promote the new Kingsman movie in this very stylish three-piece suit, but it's bloody hot in Abu Dhabi, and it's definitely not what I would have chosen to wear. It was also farewell to Kimi Räikkönen, who's decided to hang up his race suit after 19 years in the sport. He has 349 race starts, 18 pole positions, 103 podiums, 21 victories, and was 2007 world champion racing for Ferrari. Remarkably, he was so impressive as a junior that he made his Formula One debut after only competing in 23 car races. But by his third season, he was already a title contender, finishing second to Michael Schumacher in 2003. The Iceman was infamous for his sort of monosyllabic, very blunt answers to interview questions, and also for his quite direct responses to his race engineer during races. In a message printed on the side of the car, his team paid tribute to an incident that happened a few years ago when he was racing for Lotus. Kimi told his race engineer, "Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing." Things weren't plain sailing in his final race. He spun in practice, hit the barrier just outside the hotel. Here he is climbing out of a stricken car. The real focus was on the main two protagonists, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Lewis took the early advantage, winning races at the start of the season, only for Max to battle his way back. But then his championship bid teetered. It faltered with a huge crash in Silverstone, and then another first corner crash in Budapest. Max managed to regain the lead after the summer break, only for Lewis to come back incredibly strongly, winning a remarkable last to first place victory in Brazil. He picked up victories in Qatar, and in Saudi Arabia, in very controversial circumstances, he managed to level the scores. It looked like Lewis had all of the initiative, and when Max stormed off the podium, it looked like he was a broken man. But Max bounced back in Abu Dhabi, taking pole position, thanks in large part to his teammate Sergio Perez, who gave him a huge tow in the final qualifying session. Going into race day, it was game on. Starting from pole position is critical in Abu Dhabi. It's a notoriously difficult track to overtake on. Max started from pole position with the fastest red-marked tyres. Alongside him was Lewis Hamilton on the slower medium tyres. Advantage, Max Verstappen. Only Lewis flew off the start, and with a few meters, he was side by side with Max. After the first corner, he was comfortably ahead and in total control. Advantage, Lewis. The faster tyres did allow Max to attack, and at turn 6, he made a lunge for the lead. He pushed Lewis off the track, and Lewis cut the corner and was able to get ahead of him. Bizarrely, the stewards didn't investigate this because it looked like Lewis had gained an advantage by leaving the track. After this, Lewis was in total control. He built up a sizable lead to Verstappen, and I really thought it was all over. I'd started taking panning, arty, slow shutter speed shots of McLarens, playing with the purple evening light, and the cars sparking past me. But the race came back to life on lap 20. Perez had stayed out, so after Hamilton's pit stop, he was ahead, and the two of them had a ding-dong battle. The Mexican refused to accept that he had been passed, and he kept coming back at Lewis again and again. And this is remarkable because he was on slower, worn-out tyres, and Lewis was on brand new rubber. That heroic effort helped Verstappen close the gap to Lewis, Max calling his teammate a legend. Thanks to Perez, Max managed to close the gap to Lewis by 10 seconds. He was almost in touching distance of the Mercedes gearbox. Somehow, Lewis kept him at bay. On lap 35, Giovinazzi stops on track. This triggers a virtual safety car, and Verstappen's able to dive into the pits and get new tyres. Hamilton stays out at this point. I passed Antonio in the paddock as he was walking back to his hospitality, and I was heading to the final corner to take my position for the end of the race. At this point, Lewis has built up quite a large lead. He's on slower, older tyres, and Max is eating into that rapidly because he's on faster, fresher rubber. However, there's not enough time for Max to catch Lewis before the end of the race. At this point, it's advantage Hamilton. On lap 53. No one was paying much attention to the last place battle between Nicholas Latifi and Mick Schumacher. Little did we care when the Williams ran wide in turn 9, or appreciate the impact the dirt on his tyres will have until turn 14, where he went deep, hitting into the barrier and bringing out the safety car. At this point, let me introduce you to Michael Massey, the Formula One race director. It's his job to ensure the race runs according to the rules and that everyone is safe doing so. Massey was put in a very difficult position having to decide the fate of the World Championship. Already in this race, we've seen him try not to get involved. He didn't intervene in the first lap incident between Max and Lewis. With 5 laps of the race remaining, what would he do? Letting the race finish under the safety car probably would have been the correct decision given the rules, but it would have been a disaster for Formula One as a spectacle, as sporting entertainment. The most anticipated championship decided under a safety car would have been so anticlimactic that they would have lost millions of fans. However, going racing again was also guaranteed to upset somebody. The solution he opted for wasn't great. There were other solutions that were probably worse, but the one that he's elected wasn't a great solution. Verstappen was able to stop and change tyres without giving up track position. Hamilton wasn't able to do so. So Lewis is on these old, knackered, gnarled, hard tyres, and Max is on these fast, super-duper soft tyres. It's advantage Max. As the cars bunched up behind the safety car, there are several lapped cars between Max and Lewis that Max would need to overtake to get anywhere near the Mercedes. And it looked like you'd only have 1 lap to do that. So now it's advantage Lewis. But then, Massey makes the unusual decision to allow some of the cars to unlap themselves, namely all the cars between Max and Lewis. Advantage Max. And Max didn't need a second invitation, diving down the inside of Lewis at turn 5. But somehow Lewis came back and nearly retook the lead. But it wasn't enough. But somehow Max held on to take the checkered flag and claim his first ever world title. There were huge emotional scenes on the track when Verstappen climbed out of his car, collapsed to his knees next to his rear tyre. Lewis was the ultimate sportsman in defeat, congratulating Max on his victory, even though Mercedes would go on to contest the result. This went on for hours as we waited to see what the FIA would do. But realistically, at that stage, it was impossible to change the result. The race director had done everything to try and ensure the race finished as a race. However, in doing so, he changed the course of the result and the course of the championship. Lewis had dominated 57 laps of the race, but it's just that last lap that can be such a kicker. Just ask Lando Norris after Russia. I think Massey should have stopped the race 2 or 3 laps before the end, as he had done in Baku earlier the year. That would have allowed us to have a standing start with all the teams on fresh tyres. It would have been a much fairer contest. Despite all of that, I think Max is a deserved world champion. I don't think you can hold the actions of race control against him. He was exceptionally strong during the course of the season. And that's not taking anything away from Lewis, who had probably one of his toughest title fights of his career. It was right up there with 2007. We've been exceptionally lucky to see 2 absolutely gifted racing drivers going head-to-head in very, very similar machinery. And it's produced a spectacular year, one that doesn't come around very often, a true vintage. It's just sad that it's been tainted by such controversy, because a championship that finishes on the last lap of the last race, there's not many seasons in Formula One that can match that. Thank you for watching my deep dive into the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it's given you a different perspective of the race. As we head into this weekend's finale for the 2022 season, we can only hope that next year is as an exhilarating season as 2021. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to buy any pictures from the 2021 race, they're available in a link below. Next stop, Abu Dhabi. Until then, goodbye.